The American Civil Rights Movement was a turning point in history, but its legacy is still being realized today. This week on Full Frame, we'll meet some of the people at the forefront of the modern civil rights movement. I'm Mike Walter in Los Angeles. Let's take it full frame. He was born Lonnie Rashid Lynn, but to his legion of fans around the world, he's known as Common. His song, I Used to Love Her, has influenced hip-hop music immensely since its release more than 20 years ago. His music has landed him in the middle of some of the hip-hop world's most famous controversies. But Common's body of work goes far beyond his musical talents and his beginnings as an underground rapper. In addition to being a Grammy and Golden Globe winning musician, he has his own foundation with the mission to expose underserved inner-city youth to new opportunities through the creative arts. He's authored children's books, written a memoir, hosted a design competition television show, and made his mark as an actor. This year, he portrayed Reverend James Bevel in the critically acclaimed film Selma. The film tells the story of the historic 1965 civil rights marches from Selma, Alabama, to the state capitol in Montgomery, where African Americans demanded their right to register to vote. Those protests led to the passage of the Federal Voting Rights Act later that year. They're considered a turning point in the 1960s civil rights movement in America.
Now the war is not over.
White, black, and otherwise. We need you to stand with us.
I heard about our brothers and sisters struggling and couldn't just stand by.
Cry glory.
Glory! Hallelujah!
Glory.
Our freedom will soon be upon us. His truth is marching on.
Common and John Legend took home the Academy Award for Best Original Song for Glory from the Selma soundtrack at this year's Academy Awards. Common joins me now to discuss his professional achievements and philanthropy, as well as the current legacy of the American Civil Rights Movement. I want to welcome you to Full Frame.
How are you?
Pleasure meeting you. Yes, let me start with a really tough question right off the bat. Do you ever go out on stage and look at this vast audience and say, not again? Because you look there in the front row, and there's Bill O'Reilly and Sarah Palin.
Well, if I saw them in the audience, I would actually be excited, and I would want them to know that this music is universal and is meant for all people to enjoy. And I might give a couple little freestyles to them just so they know it's spontaneous and it's live and what hip-hop is.
The reason I bring it up, for some of the viewers who aren't familiar, you get invited to the White House by Michelle Obama, yes. And I'm sure you must have been blindsided by the... Were you blindsided?
Yeah, I was totally, blindsided because I was filming a movie called Love at the time, and I remember getting some text messages from my friends saying, don't worry about what they're saying about you. So I thought it was like a rumor about me and some girl, you know. And then my team sat down and had a meeting with me, and they said, hey, we want you to be aware that Bill O'Reilly, Fox News, Sarah Palin are saying that you're a vile rapper and this and that. I honestly was initially was kind of just laughing a little bit, like, what, you serious? Is this real? And eventually, it never really struck me personally. It just, to me, I looked at it always like, hey, first of all, I'm grateful to be invited to the White House. And if I'm being talked about it controversially, even though that wasn't the true claim, that at least it's for standing up for things that I believe in, like whether it's the injustices that I felt against police brutality and people being killed, by, police officers, or for Assata Shakur, who I believe to be innocent. And, so it was it was something that I stood for, so I wasn't mad about the controversy.
A little bit of freedom of speech there, which is inherent in the Constitution. Yeah. When that happened, well, let me step back, because I've had a chance to chat with you. You're a regular guy, pretty nice. I mean, got an easy smile. Yeah. It seems like you're in controversies all the time. People are always clashing with you. What's that all about?
Well, I mean, hey, I got an indirect message from Ambassador Andrew Young that said, when you're on the path and wanting to do things that are just and good, and you want to do things that help out people, there's times you may be attacked, and that's just part of what media gets. Media wants drama, so so sometimes, no matter what, and I'm not a perfect human being, but like what many people saw and what many people recognized when Fox was reporting the news, Fox had just had a clip about me 2 weeks before talking about what I was doing in the community. So more people know that I'm about positive vibrations and putting out positive energy than anything else,
They have a little bit of amnesia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you came out with this song, I Used to Love Her, which I think is about Sarah Palin.
No, yeah,
I'm just kidding.
What about I Still Love Her? No, I'm just kidding.
Which was amazing, the impact it's had. And of course, other hip-hop artists have talked about it. It's been in other songs. I mean, when you came out with it, did you know this thing is going to have an impact? And what were you trying to say in the song, and do you think it was misconstrued in any way?
Well, I have a true affinity for hip-hop. It's something that is dear to my heart. And I wrote the song, I Used to Love Her, using a woman as a metaphor to talk about my relationship with hip-hop.
I be geeked when she come around. Slim was fresh, Joe, when she was underground, original, pure on top of the down, sister. Boy, I tell you, I miss her.
When I wrote it, I was just really speaking about how much I care about the culture and didn't want to see it become too corporate and become too like diluted with things that's not what the core of the culture is about. I wrote the song. Some people felt like I was dissing a certain region, and I was like, wait, hold up. I'm actually a fan of hip hop from the East Coast, West Coast, Southern. I just like quality music and the culture. So when I found out that people were offended, I just was like, wait, are you serious? And when I first heard that, I was honestly excited because it was another one of those things where it was Ice Cube and he was feeling like I was dissing the West Coast, but I was just happy that he knew who I was, honestly, when I first realized there was a controversy about that.
That's wild. So if you were to write the song now, how would it differ, do you think?
Well, I think I would talk about how hip-hop has to grow. It has to evolve. One thing, as you mature as an individual, you understand that we all go through changes. And some of the changes may not be particular to me as far as feeding my liking, but that's what human beings go through. That's what the music goes through. It's a culture, so it's going to change. And I think, now I write the song saying I understand your change. And like I would say to Sarah Palin, I still love her,
She may not be buying that. I'm not even sure I am. Your native city, Chicago, has seen a lot of gang violence. Do you think the new wave of drill music is contributing to that? Or do you think the media maybe focuses too much on the music and the impact of the music, or does it have an influence?
Well, music definitely has an influence, but I think if you remove drill music, you still would have poverty in the inner city. You still would have people that don't have jobs. You still would have an education in a lot of the inner cities that's not up to par. So those are the core problems. The music is really a reflection of that in these neighborhoods and communities and families that are being destroyed by not having resources.
Well, let's talk about that, because when I think of, I've been in a lot of tough neighborhoods throughout my career as a journalist, and you talk to some of these young kids, and they look at somebody like you and they say, maybe I could do that. I could maybe be successful. I could get out of here by doing that. Your father played professional basketball. That's another thing they look at. But in terms of opportunities, I mean, you hit it. What needs to happen? I mean, it seems like a lot of young people look, these are the pathways, Maybe I could become a famous rapper, or maybe I could play basketball or sports for a living.
Yeah.
But they don't really see the other opportunities out there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think what can happen is we have to expose young people to other ideas, other careers. Even if it's entertainment, you don't have to actually be the person in front of the camera to be important to the contribution of the entertainment industry. Or even if it is sports, you don't necessarily have to be the athlete out there. But beyond entertainment and sports, let's think about exposing them to something as simple as and as great as being a chef, or something being an engineer, or being a lawyer. Just architect, so many things but I think we have to take programs and people that are successful into those communities and explain to them, these are some of the options you have. Because the reason why the kids are thinking, well, I could be a rapper, I can be an athlete, is because those are the people that they're seeing constantly that they equivalent to with success.
I've spoken to some who've managed to work their way out of those kind of tough environments and be very successful, and they say that a key is education, and I know your mom's been active in that. How important is that? And talk to me about your own foundation and how you try and connect with the youth.
Well, education is extremely important. I believe it's the key. And I'm thinking of education on a holistic level from the perspective of academic. Like, I believe in spiritual education, character development, health education, ways, and like I said, choosing professional, careers as far as educating them on that level. It's just education as a whole. And, I don't have all the answers and ideas, but those are ways that I think that we can get in and educate our youth to give them the best chance to be successful and be happy and contribute to the world. I've, learned from my mother, who I got to see firsthand as an educator and as a person who cared for other human beings, just embrace students, embrace people from our neighborhood, embrace some of my friends who didn't have parents around. And that really influenced me and inspired me to, when I saw my friends that didn't have parents, say, man, I want to help. I want to help them immediately. I want to help people in my neighborhood. And eventually, as I got the platform to speak as an artist, it was like, wow, I'm affecting people. I want to help people that everywhere I go, I want to help. Like, it's like I want people to have opportunities. I want to see people happy. So it started, the core, that was the core of it, and eventually we started my foundation called the Common Ground Foundation. And of course, it's a great team I work with, but some of the same points of developing youth, this is what we do. We develop them academically through programs that we have, twice a month. We also develop them character-wise just through our programs and letting them have mentors and letting them have discussions that they need to have. Some of it takes place in private, some of it is like in groups, just like having powwows. We have camps where we, expose them to yoga, let them do theater and plays that deal with different subject matters to, and lessons that need to be learned. So I believe that just giving kids hope and dreams, saying, okay, let's instill a dream in you. What is your dream? Let's extract whatever your dream is and letting them see that, because that specifically is what drove me. Like, I was like, I have a dream, not to sound like Martin Luther King, but I have a dream that I want to achieve something in life. I want to be something. And I didn't even know exactly what it was initially. I just knew I loved certain things. And I think that's one of the things we can expose them to, so many different things, and then they can say, okay, well, I really want to be, I want to be a poet. And can I make a profession out of being a poet? Yes. And you may have to work a job for a second, and then eventually, as you get to a certain level, you can be a poet and still make that a profession. So anyway, with that being said, that's what Common Ground is about: extracting the dreams, helping youth reach their dreams, and really contribute to the world in the best way.
Equality and opportunity, I think that's a great kind of a thematic segue into Selma, which is what that film was all about, and the struggle. How was that experience for you? And then, I know how films are made. You're in this scene or you're in that scene. It's all kind of like, it's all over the place. It's not like it's thematic and you're sitting there and you're watching it. So you're working on it and you're trying to get inside your character, but then going and seeing the film. What was that like to see it for the first time after it was cut?
When I watched the film for the first time, I was like, wow, this is, for me, this is a film that has moved me like a film I haven't seen in a long time. Like, I was like, this is one of the greatest pieces of art that I've seen in filmmaking. And then I had to ask myself, am I just biased because I'm a part of it and this struggle means so much to me? But after the fourth time seeing it, it kept growing and getting better to me, and I looked at it, and what I want to say is what I get from the film is it makes me want to be a better human being, and I rarely get that from a lot of pictures, and even movies I love, like having sparked that thing in me to say, yo, I want to be a better person, I can do more. And I knew I was getting that experience filming Selma, but to watch it and leave with that, and to have people who have watched the film say, you know, this made me want to do more. It made me look and see. I mean, even as we spoke, you said a statement about how it made you feel. The fact that it can bring up those emotions in you is really leading us to a better world in a way. Like and this is like being a part of something that's bigger than just a movie. You know, it really has become part of culture and part of spark conversation that really is leading to change. You know, like those conversations about how we really feel and things that we've experienced, acknowledging our past and knowing where we are, knowing we got a ways to go, but still seeing ways that people were successful in changing the world and the commitment that they had. Those are the things that will inspire us to be better.
Let's listen to a little bit of Glory, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots, we on the ground. The camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, glory.
Rosa Parks Ferguson, by writing that, you're saying the journey hasn't ended, I mean, in many respects. That was important for you to write it that way, correct?
Yes, I mean, we can see the journey hasn't ended. I mean, you know, young people are being killed in the streets, and part of that is just because of lack of understanding and not having the interaction with each other to say, hey, this person, like, means me no harm that I need to kill them, you know, and really just trying to have a act from a place of understanding instead of, you know, it's tough. It's got to be tough for a police officer who knows that, you know, there are people out there who shoot at police officers. But when somebody's unarmed, it's just not like, it doesn't make sense for you to have to, you know, kill them. So with that being said, that's one instance, and then you have, you know, other instances like with Eric Gardner, and just our relationships as races, not just black and white, even though black and white is the core, because that's what this country was built together with, black and white. But just the way we relate to each other, there's still some things we need to resolve. Things that, it's like therapy. You got to put it out on the table and talk about it and go through it and figure out how to heal it and figure out where the wounds come from. And, you know, those wounds have been there and existed, and sometimes we put it away and act like, oh, well, you know, we have a black president, and, you know, you see people that are successful, but it's still people that's poor, black and white and Latino, and like, that just don't have some of the same opportunities and are treated less than equal as far as citizens. Those things are the reasons that I write about Ferguson, and I write about the fight is still going on, because, and what I have to say about the fight is the fight is not only affecting one nationality, and the fight can't be won just by one nationality. It's like, oh, we gotta connect. Like, you and I have to have these discussions so that when I go home, it's like my black people ain't looking like at all white people like, oh, they prejudiced or they against us. And you can go home and tell friends the same thing. And then it's like, okay, well, we got, you know, like, they need to hear it from us sometimes. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like, some of the walls get broke down, and then, you know, you start progressing relationships, you start understanding each other. And we, you know, I think people don't have to agree on everything, but if you put love and understanding in the center of it, then you're not gonna just react and say, oh, well, man, I hate you because you don't agree with my religion, and I'm willing to destroy you for that. Like, that doesn't make sense, you know. And, you know, young man, you just showed me some anger, and I think, you know, I've been on these streets, and I know black kids act like this, so I'm gonna destroy you. That just doesn't make sense. Like, what is the reason? Like, and these are things that we gotta work towards resolving. And when I bring those things up, it's just like, hey, y'all, we not past this. Let's not act like this was just in 50 years ago. Because we seeing like some of the same exact things happening right now.
The Oscars, what's the feeling for you? And a secondary question, you're director of Selma, which I think she should have been nominated. She wasn't. Do you think the Oscars really need to look in the people who vote on this need to look in the mirror and say, hey, we need to start thinking about gender and race, because she's a woman and we've only seen one woman win this award. She's obviously African American.
Yeah. Well, of course I'm disappointed that Ava didn't get nominated and David didn't get nominated, but I also understand it's a voting process, and the people who voted, for whatever reason, we don't know all the, you know, like the intricacies of what goes on into the voting. And so for whatever reason, she didn't get nominated this time. But I do believe the most important thing, along with the disappointment I had, the most important thing is that this movie is affecting children and people all over. You know, like, people have come up to me. I've had an 8-year-old white kid come up to me and say, man, I really loved you in Selma. You know how much that touched me? I was like, because I was wondering what he was going to come up and say to me. I'm like, he walked up and I'm like, okay, what does he say? And he said, I really loved you in Selma. I said, what? Like, 8-year-old kid, like, white kid that just, so the fact that you have people, wealthy people, buying tickets for high school students in New York, churches on the phone talking about how they can take their congregations, black and white churches, to see Selma. I think, you know, obviously we want Oscars. We want Oscars and Golden Globes. But, you know, we have to also be happy and grateful that we are having this impact. Because this is, to me, this is an extension of what Dr. King and the people of the civil rights movement were about. Like, that change is, like, it feels like this movie is a part of the civil rights movement.
The change continues.
Yes.
Speaking of children, my son provided a question for me. If I don't ask it, he's going to really give me a hard time.
What's your son's name?
His name is Trevor. Do you think
Trevor,
that Drake is a pajama rapper?
Oh, man, no. Drake is a very talented artist, great songwriter. And nah, I mean, you know, I think that he does his thing. He brings, one thing I like about Drake is that he's being himself. Like, he's not really trying to, like, be gangster. You know, even if he bring a little street talk to it, you know, you know that he's not really talking about, like, I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna kill you, you know. So that, I mean, I appreciate that, and he's a good song maker, and he expresses himself. So, I mean, I think he's talented. I know Trevor trying to get me, look, tell him those beefs are behind, man. It's about peace, man. I just came from doing Selma, man. It's peace.
So I start with Sarah Palin. He ends up with Drake. So we hit you on both ends.
Yeah,
Bookended
exactly.
you. Thank you so much. It's been a delight. Coming up next, a look at the current state of race relations in America.